Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. We're going to get started. We are live broadcasting this, so we wanted to get started right away. So as people are shuffling in for tonight's forum on economic growth in our region. For those of you that don't know the UT Family Business Center, we are a member-based organization in the College of Business and Innovation that does programming and education specifically for family businesses. We have a diverse company membership. We range from companies the size of $1 million or $1 billion in sales down to $1 million or less, companies with 500 employees or more, to companies that have just mom and dad working there. Our industries cover service, retail, manufacturing, runs the gamut, but it's the family business dynamics is what makes everyone relatable and what brings our members together. It's choosing a successor, it's learning how to work with a sibling, it's managing someone who saw you run around in diapers when you were 2 years old. That's what brings people together. Those are the issues that we tackle, and those issues transcend company size, industry, or how many employees you have. So if you aren't a member of the Family Business Center and you'd like more information, we have information cards at the desk or the check-in desk. Fill it out. We'd be happy to give you a call, set up an appointment, and tell you more about the UT Family Business Center and the benefits that our members get. So we're really excited to be able to partner with the UT Alumni Association, which is another great organization on campus that I am a proud member of. So I'm going to introduce Ansley Abrams Frederick to tell you a little more about her organization.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm going to be really brief. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the UT Alumni Association. We're very, very happy to partner with Family Business on this program and many programs like this. Our organization is a membership organization. If you are not a current member and you are an alum, we ask that you might consider joining. We've added 30 benefits just this year, and we will continue to grow those benefits. If you are interested, I've got brochures out front at the front desk, and I encourage you to check out our website at toledoalumni.org. Your membership goes towards marketing, it goes towards networking, it supports student scholarships and programming such as this. So your dollars work hard for you, and if you join, one of your benefits can pay for, or more than pay for, your membership fees. So we encourage you and really ask you to consider joining the Alumni Association. Thank you very much, and enjoy the program.
Thank you. And I'd be remiss if I didn't take a moment to thank the sponsors of the UT Family Business Center, many of whom are here tonight, and they're the reason that we're able to put on events like this. So we have Eastman & Smith, Fifth Third Bank, Huntington National Bank, Highland, Raymond, Shoemaker Loop & Kendrick, Skylight Financial Group, and the William Vaughn Company. So our members told us that they were interested in learning more about the regional economic forecast, what's happening in our area, what are the trends, and what this means for business leaders. So when we began discussing partnering with the Alumni Association, two names immediately came to mind. Two men that have had a lot of passion for and have done a lot to contribute to the success to our region, Dean Monsky and Tal Poth Jr. I'm going to read their bios. I attempted to memorize these, and I thought that wasn't happening, so bear with me for a second. So Dean Monsky, in February of 2011, Dean Monsky was named President and CEO of the Regional Growth Partnership, which you'll soon learn more about, a private nonprofit development corporation dedicated to fostering local, national, and international economic growth opportunities for Northwest Ohio and Southeast Michigan. So prior, Dean was the Deputy Mayor for External Affairs in the administration of Toledo Mayor Michael Bell. His area of responsibility was coordinating the City of Toledo's economic development efforts. He served as Vice President in the Regional Growth Partnership from 2006 to 2009, where he engaged investors in the business community, worked with regional partners from both the private and public sector responsible for business retention and expansion, and served as a face-to-face contact across the country promoting Northwest Ohio. Dean is a past board member for the Ohio Tax Credit Authority, past executive board member and Region 2 director for the Ohio Economic Development Association, and past president of the Northwest Ohio Regional Economic Development Association. He was born and raised in Toledo, and he's an alum of Bowling Green. We'll forgive him. Not everyone's perfect, so thank you. Paul
Could have
Toth-
left that part out.
Paul Toth Jr. is President and CEO of the Lucas County Port Authority and is responsible for all Port Authority operations. Most recently, he served as Vice President of the Technical and Financing Services and Airport Director for the Toledo Lucas County Port Authority. His responsibilities in these roles included overseeing all activities of the airports and planning, engineering, development, construction activities associated with the Port Authority's multimodal facilities. His responsibilities include the Port Authority's innovative financing programs, which include the Northwest Ohio Bond Fund, as well as regional loan programs for the State of Ohio and Small Business Administration, which we'll also learn more about soon. Paul has been employed with the Lucas County Port Authority for more than 30 years, which is very hard to believe, serving in several capacities during his career. He served as Director of the New Project Development and Technical Services, Director of Airports, and Vice President of Technical and Financing Services for the Toledo Lucas County Port Authority prior to being appointed to President and CEO. Paul has served on several committees with the Toledo Regional Chamber of Commerce, including the Military Affairs Committee and Economic Development Committee. Paul earned a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Toledo. As a registered professional engineer in the state of Ohio, he received his MBA from the University of Toledo, specializing in finance, and he's past president of the Board of Trustees of the University of Toledo Alumni Association. So with that, I will pass it over to you.
Great. I'm gonna start it off, and I'm gonna stand just to see this outstanding crowd that we have here today, and a lot of familiar faces and friends. I'm going to share with you a little bit about the Port Authority just to give you a feel for what we do, but maybe as a preface to that is, as I was thinking about our discussion tonight, a lot of what we do really is setting small businesses and entrepreneurs up for success. And if I get an opportunity, I'll share a story about Bill Preby and the Toledo Jet Center and kind of the partnership that we developed with a wonderful entrepreneur in this community, a family-owned business, at maybe the deepest, darkest time of our economic history in the last 100 years. So, with that. Bear with me, and I'm going to just kind of give you an overview of what it is that the Port Authority does. So we were created back in 1955, and the whole purpose of creating the Port Authority was to build an overseas cargo facility because of the opening of the St. Lawrence Seaway, allowing international ships to come do trade in the Great Lakes. We were the first Port Authority created in the state of Ohio, and the legislation that created Port Authorities was drafted by our own Chamber of Commerce here in Toledo, and it gave us extremely broad powers, and you'll hear about that as we go along. So we started with our overseas terminals facility. We also have we have a really sophisticated naming system. We got Facility 1, Facility 2, and Facility 3. Facility 1 is our overseas cargo facility where we bring a lot of our international ships come in and drop cargo. Facility 2 is our coal and iron ore facility, which is still very active. 1965, we were the largest coal port in the world, moving coal from Appalachia into the port and really out to the steel mills and the coal mines. And then the EPA happened, and high sulfur coal got phased out, and so we're no longer the largest coal port in the world, but still very active in coal and iron ore. We also have a confined disposal facility where we put dredge material that comes out of our river channel and bay channel. Back in 1987, we purchased the old Toledo Shipyard that had been shut down. Back in its heyday, it was very active as a shipbuilding facility. We bought that facility in '87. Revised it, brought it back to life, and now we lease it to a company called Ironhead Marine, who operates it as a ship repair facility. And if you drove down Front Street today, you would see a 800-foot ship sitting in dry dock being repaired, getting ready to start its voyage for the spring opening of the St. Lawrence Seaway. And then probably our biggest acquisition in the last 50 years was we purchased the old Chevron Gulf oil property that sat vacant for 30 years. We developed the wet side of that, which is what we call the Ironville dock. It's primarily a bulk dock, and that really kind of led to the Cleveland Cliffs project that's currently being constructed on Front Street, which is a $700 million investment by Cleveland Cliffs that will bring 100 to 120 ships of iron ore into our port, process it, and make a product that will go out to the steel industry. In the early 70s, the city of Toledo, which owns Toledo Express Airport and Toledo Executive Airport, came to the Port Authority and asked if we would take over the operation of those airports, which we did, and have operated those since 1972. In 1994, when there was a merger in the railroad industry, Conrail and Norfolk Southern merged, and we ended up owning the old Central Union Plaza, the old train station downtown. We rehabbed that, and about 2 years ago, we moved Greyhound from downtown down to that facility, so now it is an Amtrak and a Greyhound facility. 2011, the city was trying to make ends meet. If you believe Mike Bell, Carty left him with a $48 million hole in the budget, and so he approached us about buying the city's parking garages, which we were glad to partner with the city on that. So we now own the 3 parking garages in the Central Business District, and we also manage all the on-street parking on behalf of the city of Toledo. After that, we started buying a few office buildings. The office building that we were in, the office building next door. Last year, the state of Ohio approached us. They built the government center back in 1983. It was designed to be owned and house only governmental entities. It was the only building the state still owned in Northwest Ohio. They were looking to get rid of these operations, and so we were able to work out with them, and we took ownership of that in September, took over operation in January, and now we operate that building on behalf of the city, the county, and the state. There's about 1,500 employees in there, and it houses most of the city, county, and state offices for Northwest Ohio. We're also, a couple months ago, the county approached us about an office building and a parking garage that they own on 701 Adams. And so it's highly likely that we will take ownership of that from the county. It's in need of a lot of investment and repair, but we'll operate the parking garage as part of our bigger system, and we'll also manage that office building on behalf of the county and the county offices that are in there. Over the last 15 years, one of the most ambitious projects that we took on was the redevelopment of old industrial sites in the community. I already mentioned the old Gulf Oil property. That was 182 acres. We bought that property in 2008. Not the best of economic times to convince your board of directors that you want to spend $4 million on a former refinery site, 182 acres with no potential customers to go there. But we did it, and I give my board a lot of credit for having the foresight and fortitude to do that. And it's been a huge success story for us. Midwest Terminals operates the dock side of it, and then last year we announced Cleveland Cliffs' large project there. We also bought the former Toledo Coke manufacturing site where they manufactured coke for the steel industry. We cleaned that property up. That was about 50 acres. We leased it to Seneca Petroleum and to a company called Midstream Methanol. And then probably our biggest challenge to date has been the former Jeep manufacturing site, which we call Overland Industrial Park. Hopefully everybody knows where that is. We bought that property in 2010 from bankrupt Chrysler, and proceeded with a lot of help and a lot of partnership in the community to invest about $15 million in cleaning the property up, taking out 100 years worth of foundations, and we found every single one of those, and putting in infrastructure, and I think it's been a nice success story. We have about 550,000 square feet of manufacturing and distribution space out there. Dana Corporation has more than 400 employees out there making axles that used to be made in Bowling Green, Kentucky. They're now being made here in Toledo, Ohio, and Detroit Manufacturing has a nice operation there as well. I think most apropos to our discussion tonight is really the small business support that the Port Authority kind of quietly provides in the community. We started the Northwest Ohio Bond Fund back in 1988. And we probably don't have enough time to talk about the logistics of our bond fund, but we basically go into the market and sell bonds to institutional buyers. The bond fund is rated A-, so we can basically sell bonds at the same rate that Owens Corning could go sell bonds in the market. We take those dollars and we loan them to small and large businesses. And I've got a couple of good examples of small businesses. And by the way, just because this is a nice family-friendly group here, I will tell you that we've worked with large businesses like Dana and Owens Corning, and I've worked with plenty of small businesses, and I would take small businesses over big businesses any day. And the reason I say that is because sometimes for big business, bankruptcy is a strategic planning tool. My experience is that with small businesses, the small business owner will cash in his 401k to make his debt service payments. That would never happen with the CEO of Dana or Owens Corning. And we've had some really wonderful experiences and really learned to appreciate the grit and the moxie of small business owners and entrepreneurs. And I can't tell you how much I've learned to appreciate the value that entrepreneurs bring to our community. So I'll give you an example of our bond fund and what we did. And I think it was 1997 or 98, Ed Nagel from Nagel Trucking approached us. He needed to build a new facility. His business was expanding. Ed, if you don't know Nagel Trucking, their business is primarily transportation of frozen food products. And Ed primarily operates, for the most part, in the eastern half of the United States. Nice family business, growing. He and his brothers were running it. They approached us about financing an office building, a warehouse, and a truck repair facility for them. We actually leased them space that we owned, property that we owned out by Toledo Executive Airport, and built a beautiful facility. Anybody that knows what happened in 2008 and 2009 to the trucking industry, it literally got turned upside down. And never one time did Ed miss a debt service payment. He cashed in his own 401k, by the way. He did confirm that to me in order to make those payments. Never one time did he lie to me. If there was something that was going to be late or that he couldn't make it, his CFO picked up the phone and called me, and I can just tell you that the experience that we had with Ed as a small business owner is second to none. Meijer Design Group's another example of a local family-owned business that was started here that we financed an office building for them in Bowling Green. Then a couple years ago, we helped Keller Logistics expand their operation out in Defiance through our bond fund. We issued a bond to support their expansion. On the small business side, we also manage the SBA 504 loan program. I have 40 great examples of small businesses that we've helped, but a couple recent examples is Meijer's Car Wash. We just helped them finance their 4th car wash that opened about a week ago on Central Avenue. Again, a nice little family entrepreneurial business. Started into the car wash business and has been very successful with it. True Label, we've done 3 SBA loans with them. The Boland family, I think everybody in town knows the Boland family. We've done 3 SBA loans for them for Boland Label. We also manage the state's Regional 166 loan program, which again is a small business loan program. It's in partnership with the local bank. It's low interest, long-term fixed rate. And some good examples, Doyle Manufacturing, another great small business. We've done 3 business expansion loans for him through the 166 program. We also helped Boland Label with the 166, and then most recently Merit Nursing Home, again a small entrepreneur that bought a facility and rehabbed it and expanded. In 2012, we also launched what we call our Better Buildings program, and that basically provides financing for energy efficiency upgrades for buildings in the community. And a lot of that has been focused on small, locally owned businesses. We've done $48 million through that program for businesses in Northwest Ohio that we fund energy efficiency upgrades and allow them to keep their cash to make payroll and to buy equipment and expand their business. Recently did several buildings for the Barone family, some medical office buildings. Bill Tees, a local entrepreneur, owned the PNC Bank building. We financed new high-efficiency boilers for that building. Our single largest project to date was with Stan Schlabowski at Mommy Assembly and Stamping. We did I'm going to screw the number up, but I think it was $2.6 million. We put all new LED lighting in his manufacturing facility and took out a 1955 era boiler and put in a high efficiency boiler for him. And that's a great example where the energy savings are paying for the cost of the improvements over a 10-year period. We've worked with almost every one of the car dealers to upgrade their lighting to LED over the last 5 or 6 years. Ice Industry, we just approved a project for them. And Toledo Jet's another example of a local entrepreneur. We put all new high-efficiency LED lighting in the hangar where they operate out of. About 4 years ago, we funded a study. We kept hearing from a lot of people, including the Chamber of Commerce, city councilmen, that there was no access to capital for small and startup businesses. So we funded a study through a consultant out of Denver to look at what we could do for micro-lending in the community. And the study recommended that we not start our own program, primarily because we didn't have a lot of experience with it, but there was I think the second largest micro-lender in the country was a group out of Columbus called ECDI. And so we partnered with them, we brought them to town, and we now have enjoyed a 4-year relationship with them. We actually manage all of the front-end work for them. We help entrepreneurs, we meet with them, we work with other resources in the community, get them to a point where we can then submit a request for funding to the loan committee. And last year, Northwest Ohio was #1 in the state for ECDI for micro-lending in the community. So it's been a nice success, and that's just another resource that we were able to help launch. 2 more quick programs. We started a DeCap program in maybe 2010, and this really is a program designed to help small and minority contractors get access to capital. The poster child for that program is Gary Johnson. Gary owns a company called American Flooring. Might have been our first or second or third customer that came to us. Back then, Gary was having trouble getting access to capital to do a $35,000 or $40,000 job. So we worked with them, we provided him capital, bought materials for him, and we now have 55 different little companies that are in our program. And Gary, I don't know how big your project was out at the Generations Tower, but he just landed all the flooring work for the big tower that ProMedica is building. So.
2.5 million, thanks, Paul.
2.5 million. He's been a great success story, and we've got all kinds of others like him. So I hope you can appreciate that while we're involved in lots of things in the region and in the community, we absolutely have a focus on small and family-owned business, and certainly have a soft spot in our heart. The last thing I want to share with you is we have a program that we started about 6 years ago that we call our Community Economic Development Initiative. We pull $350,000 aside out of our budget every year, and we focus that on kind of specific projects in the community that are primarily neighborhood focused and things that we think are important in the community that we should be investing into. everything from workforce initiatives to community gardens to helping community centers expand and things like that. So that's also another commitment that our board has made and has been very successful. Part of that program, we actually launched in conjunction with the land bank, we launched a pilot residential energy efficiency program where we've now provided $600,000 for homeowners in targeted neighborhoods that, let's suppose their furnace goes out. They don't have $3,000 or $4,000 sitting around to pay for a new furnace, but they nonetheless need it. So our program basically provides those funds, and then we just simply put an assessment over 15 years on the residential property to allow them to pay that back over time while they can. And it's been a wonderful partnership, and we've done 31 homes through that program and looking to expand that further. So I'm going to shut up and give Dean an opportunity to share with you what he and the RGP do.
Thank you, Paul. I don't know about you, but that gets me pretty excited, listening to the Port Authority and all they do. So if you didn't think the Port Authority was involved in economic development, hopefully you're going to walk out of here with a whole lot different perspective. And you'll also know why their tagline for all their marketing is not just a port. Most people think it's a seaport and the airport, but as you can see, it's a whole lot more than that. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of raise up to a little more regional perspective. We don't do quite as much. We certainly don't do the same kind of programs. But let me give you just a very brief history, a little bit about, so you kind of know what we do and what we're all about. Give you a couple of facts and figures that really talk to and speak to how well Northwest Ohio has done in the last 5 years. And hopefully we leave a whole lot of time for Q&A, because Paul and I, while we're sitting here in these comfy chairs, we'd love to have a little bit of dialogue, and hopefully you've got some questions for us. So first, let's start with a little history. So ironically, my friend Paul Toth here, the Port Authority actually created the Regional Growth Partnership 25 years ago with the Toledo Regional Chamber of Commerce. We didn't have a regional economic development group that when a company came into town and said, I'd like to talk about maybe locating my business here and spending some capital and hiring some people, we didn't have anyone to do it 24/7, so the RGP was created, mainly funded through the Port Authority. And about in 2005, we went completely private and told our good friends at the port, thank you, but no thank you to your $1 million. We're going to raise that money completely privately in about 60 companies throughout Northwest Ohio. The goal was to raise $8 million to operate for 5 years. They raised about $9.3 million, and things have been going fantastic ever since. So let's define some things. Regional, first of all. So Regional Growth Partnership, we cover and we are quote unquote responsible for 17 counties in Northwest Ohio. So if you kind of go over to Defiance down to around Lima area, Findlay up in Sandusky, kind of that area. And when I say we're responsible for it, what does that mean? We do two things, and I think we do those two things pretty well. First of all, we're the sales and marketing arm for that geography. And what are we selling and what are we marketing? The business assets of this region. So we're talking about all the things that a business would be interested in, from all the things you hear about constantly that our region is strong in, whether it be logistics, proximity to markets, other things that businesses would be interested in. And so who are we actually selling and marketing that to? A couple of different people. First of all, site location consultants. So 25 years ago when we started, a company in California that maybe had operations on the coast would want to look for a new distribution facility to get closer to their customer base, and they might find someone who wasn't busy that week and go out and find us a building somewhere in the Midwest. As things got more competitive, and every single community now in the United States wants to land new investment and new jobs. So site location consultants really became much more prevalent, and they're the people that would help those companies decide on where to put that new investment and create those new jobs. So they would basically do the due diligence, do the legwork to identify a short list of communities that company could then look to. So the first group of people that we make sure really understand the assets of this region are those site location consultants. There are thousands throughout the country that do this work or say they do the work, or could be an accounting firm that does some of that. So we make sure that we have an incredible relationship with the top 200. And we define the top 200 by companies that do the most amount of deals. Some of these consultants will actually work on 70 different deals a year. So they're really the thought leader for that company of where they're going to put that investment and create those jobs. So they do a lot of deals. They do them in the industries that we're already strong in here in Northwest Ohio. If it's something that's going to be in aerospace, we're probably not going to really want to try to compete overly hard because our friends just to the south are going to kill us in Dayton on aerospace companies. So we make sure they're in industries we're strong in. So a lot of deals in the industries, and they have to do work in our geography. There's some great site consultants on the West Coast, but they're never going to leave the West Coast because they don't deal with companies that are looking in the Midwest. So if they meet those 3 criteria, and we've identified the top 200 that meet that criteria, we're going to make sure that they know us by name. The predominance of people that will do that kind of work, the big companies will be in Chicago, Atlanta, Dallas, of course, some of the bigger cities. And we make sure that they know us by name. We go to see them. We see them at conferences. And we're talking about the assets in this region and why, if they have a client that's looking for those assets we have, that we get a phone call and we get an opportunity. Another group would be companies direct, and I'll mention these industries here in just a second, but we'll also go directly to companies. We have a great consultant out of Cleveland that actually identifies for us a couple of companies a month in these industries that they do a lot of research and find out that that company probably has a pretty good shot at doing some kind of expansion, making some kind of investment sometime in the next 12 to 18 months. So we will start having direct relationships develop with the real estate people and other folks within that company to make sure they understand if you're going to have a project coming up that you should at least think about us, and here's why. So that's a brief thing of the sales and marketing. I said we do 2 things pretty well. The next is project management. Okay, so what do we do when a company says, I have an interest, I want to open a new facility, hire some people, spend some money. What do we do with that? We really kind of are the tip of that spear in making sure that we're managing that process once they have an interest from A to Z. So that includes things like, the first thing we're going to do is find out what the criteria for that building or site are, and we'll do that research for them. We have a database that's connected to the state, that's connected to all of our counties, to make sure that we can readily identify the buildings or sites that meet their specific needs. We then all make sure that whether it be a local community, a local county, people like the Port Authority or banks for financing, anything at all that can add value to make that company decide to locate that new operation here versus Georgia, we want to bring to the table and make sure we're presenting a collaborative package to them to say, here's what we can do for you if you locate here. Along with that, I'm going to throw out a term, Jobs Ohio. I'm sure many of you have heard Jobs Ohio. Maybe you don't understand it, but you've heard about it. So in essence, what happened was Governor Kasich 8 years ago, for lack of better terminology, created a statewide RGP. So what they did is they took economic development private, just as we did here in Northwest Ohio, and instead of what was being done out of state government to talk about state incentives and what are the other assistance that the state can do, they took that work private, but instead of hiring hundreds of people when they created it, there were already 6 RGPs around the state. So they basically had a partnership with us that said, we would like you to perform the work that was being done out of state government on our behalf in the 17 counties in Northwest Ohio. So 8 years ago, we entered into a contract with Jobs Ohio, and now it was being done out of one government center here in downtown Toledo for Northwest Ohio with one person. We now do out of the RGP office with 6 to 10 people and our entire network of folks throughout Northwest Ohio. So it's simply much more efficient. It's a much better process to get things done on an expedited manner. So when that company wants to spend, when Cleveland Cliffs says they want to spend $700 million on a project, what can you do to help us? A project of that magnitude 10 years ago would have taken months to get a letter from the state to tell them what they're going to do for them. Well, they've already broken ground in Indiana by the time we get them a letter of what we can do. Today, we can get things done as quick as 2 days. Typically, maybe a week or 2 for larger projects, but it's a much more efficient, a much more effective way of doing work. So let's talk just a little bit about some of the numbers for the region. I said we've got some pretty strong numbers the last 5 years. So throughout those 17 counties in Northwest Ohio, on average, each and every year, we close 115 projects as an average. Those 115 projects represent over 4,500 new jobs. not spin-off, not secondary, not whatever other fuzzy math you want to use, but direct jobs attributed to those 115 projects. And the capital investment that has been spent in those 17 counties averages over $3 billion with a B for the last 5 years. So it's been absolutely incredible what's been going on in this region as far as new companies coming in, the capital that's been spent, and some of the momentum that we have going throughout the entire region. Our pipeline, I would also say, is extremely strong. If every single project happened, which it will not, but if every single project happened this year that we have in our pipeline, and these are bona fide projects that you can identify the number of jobs, the capital investment, you know exactly what this company wants to do. The numbers we have as of 30 days ago, we've got 85 projects in that pipeline, and if they all happen, it'd be 7,875 new jobs and over $6.7 billion of investment. So we're not slowing down anytime soon with what's going on here in the region, which we're pretty excited about. The other thing I like about those numbers, Paul talked about a lot of projects, and the Port Authority certainly works with on a lot of those numbers. And a lot of projects they have are really here in the Toledo-Lucas County area. Certainly some of the programs they have, while they try to get outside with it and try to market as best they can, those numbers I just gave you are really, really spread out throughout Northwest Ohio. So our work is certainly not Toledo or Lucas County centric. Matter of fact, it's relatively equally spread out throughout those 17 counties. There is certainly a predominance of the I-75 corridor, so Lucas, Wood, Hancock, and Allen County, you see a lot there. And if you look at the industries that I would say make up probably 95% of those numbers, advanced manufacturing, logistics, energy, food processing, and certainly automotive. So again, it's things you would think about, but that's really kind of our world, and what we do, again, is an incredibly collaborative effort. I would also say, and Paul and I talk about this all the time, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, and maybe even more recent, the average person, if you said what's going on in economic development and who does what, I think there's still a perception that there's an alphabet soup of agencies. There's a lot of people stepping on each other's toes. The left doesn't know what the right hand's doing. Nothing could be further from the truth for the last decade throughout all of Northwest Ohio. As some examples, we have monthly meetings with all of those county economic development directors. We have monthly meetings in our office with the City of Toledo and Lucas County economic development partners, as well as the Port Authority. We have at the Port Authority, we have a monthly partners lunch that has many of these agencies that we get together to make sure everyone knows what the left hand is doing and what the right hand's doing. Again, the collaboration has never been stronger. I'm born and raised here in Toledo. I've been doing this work for over 25 years, and what we have going on right now is the kind of stuff we've never seen before. So I'm going to leave it at that, because Paul and I would really love to have some Q&A and love to know what you'd like to know about. And I'm going to stop there. We'll be happy to take some questions.
Oh, I'm just coming to get the mic for questions.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Dean.
We said no heckling from the front. Now, come on.
I think it was Jessup Scott that said 100 years ago that Toledo should be the glittering diamond of the continent. And you folks are doing a great job, and I commend you. I think you've got a great presentation and a great group of projects. Thanks so much.
I have a question. With all of this great development that the Port Authority has done, is it generating cash to help in other things to help reduce our income tax here in Lucas County, our property taxes and so forth? So that seems to not be going down. Are you generating cash? Not that there's success. You know, we promote bonds for the Port Authority, and we voted for some of that. But now is it up and rolling where we're going to have some more money for public education and things like that?
Yeah, it is. So let me just talk specific about the Port Authority. So we generate all of our own operating revenue. Our operating budget, got to add all the numbers up because they're not consolidated, somewhere around $18, $19 million a year. And that's 100% off of things like landing fees and building rent and property leases and percentage of gross for our operations at our port. We've actually just about doubled that revenue in the last 7 years. So to answer your question, yes, we are doing well. We continue to invest that money back in the community. We continue to buy properties and clean things up. Around the old Jeep plant, the Overland Industrial Park, there's a lot of dilapidated buildings. We're working hard to try to get ownership of those buildings, tear them down. In fact, my board will approve another one next week that we're going to, 2 buildings. We've got a federal EPA is going to get involved to help clean up some environmental issues there. We're going to be tearing those down and hopefully continue to redevelop those and create jobs for the community. But I think it's very, very, at least from our perspective, we're very good stewards of the public trust. We certainly appreciate the support that the community has given us over the years, but we think that we give them one heck of a return on their investment for what we've been able to do. And I've learned from many of the people in this room how to be an entrepreneur and how to take resources and leverage them and parlay them into good things for the community. It's a good question.
Dean, I got a question for you. You talked about working with county development. Can you explain to everybody how that works, and when there's projects, if they start at the county level, do they involve you regionally right away or vice versa?
Great question. So like many things you would ask me, it's all going to start with it depends, because every project's different. It first of all depends on where the lead comes in from. If the lead comes to the state agency or Jobs Ohio, or comes directly to us from one of those consultants or companies, again, the first thing we're doing is looking for the appropriate site. We don't care which one of those 17 counties it goes in. Once the company identifies, let's say we provided 3 that met their needs, once the company identifies where they want to be, that's when we start working, in that case, with the county officials. To let them know that we have an opportunity that's going to be at a site or building that's in their county, and that we really, depending on that county person, it's kind of almost like a top-down effort of it's up to them to decide who they want to bring in. If there's an economic development person in the given city within the county that it might be in, do they have a strong elected official or not within that? So it's all kind of, it's really a complete collaborative effort on who comes to the table and when. But and really where they're involved, and a lot of times people think that these state incentives are, boy, that's the big part of a deal. Most of the times the local incentives are more important even than the state incentives are. So it just really does depend, but the working relationship is such that even if they get something, let's even say it's a company, we don't just do attraction, we also do expansion. So a company that's already in that county, we will oftentimes get a call directly from the county or city economic development person saying, hey, we've got company X, they want to do an expansion, so we want to talk about what kind of incentives are available from the state level or Jobs Ohio to help them out. So all I can say is it just really depends on where that comes in from, but there's really not much. If it meets a certain level, size, I should say, everyone is pretty well attuned now with the resources we have and when to use them. If they don't know, they'll just call us, but sometimes we wouldn't get a call if they know that there's only somebody that's going to do a small expansion. They're going to add 5,000 square foot on, maybe employ a couple more people that they probably know from experience that there's nothing that we're going to bring to the table, so they don't necessarily need to involve us. Does that answer the question okay for you?
Well, this question would be for either one of you, but when we have bad economic times, and I've seen it happen a couple times since I've been in town since 1982, where we had some fairly decent bad recessions. When that happens, because we were so tied to the automotive industry, everybody suffered, from government, private sector, everybody. Are we seeing any diversification taking place as companies come to town, and do we have the workforce to offer these companies when they want to come to town?
I'll start with a company and then let Paul get a first shot at workforce, so I'm glad I brought these with me. So those 5 industry segments that I mentioned, matter of fact, it's a good time for me to say it. Go on to everything I said. If you want to see 100 times more just what happened last year, Our final full annual report just came out online. Our website, rgp.org, pretty simple. Right there on the head page, there'll be somewhere to click to see the full annual report. It will show all that, Gary, but my short answer is we are not anywhere near as tied to automotive as we were historically. Those other 4 strong industry segments that I said make up about 95% of those numbers, they are very diversified. Automotive, I don't know what number it is, but when Paul gets done here, I'll come back and give you the number, but I've got the actual numbers from last year of the breakdown of those 5 segments with all those big numbers, but I can tell you that I do know anecdotally, it is very even across those 5 industry segments. So that's something we've actually worked hard on. It's not that, again, people used to say that why are they still chasing, smokestacks? Why aren't we diversifying? Our region is extremely diversified. Now, not as still, we'd like to do more. We continue to try to do more, and that's a huge conversation right now within our board, our executive committee, of making sure that we continue to go that route. But we're not going to turn away, and we're not going to turn away from our strengths. So I think it's a combination of those things. And workforce, I think we've both got some good answers for you on that. And I had an over-under personally with myself of how many questions before workforce came up, so I lost. I thought it'd be the first question. So. But Paul, go ahead.
To answer your question about workforce, do we have the workers for companies? No. Neither than, you got to look at our region. We've been losing population for 6 decades in Northwest Ohio. It's a challenge. We have an aging population. We have people like myself retiring and leaving the workforce. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge that every community has, but Northwest Ohio is a bigger challenge than most because there are places like Columbus, and Indianapolis, and Nashville that have 100 people a day moving in there. There are places like Toledo and Northwest Ohio that have been losing population for 5 decades. It's a stark reality. I keep saying we need to, if we're going to incentivize industry, we need to incentivize the right kind of jobs in the community because now it's our time to be choosy and particular and make sure that we're going after jobs that people can raise a family on and that have a sustainability. So, but it's the single biggest issue everywhere you go right now, even in communities that are growing. When you get down to an unemployment rate of 5%, you've got an issue. You're at full employment. I think the bigger issue we have as a community in Toledo, probably proportionally is struggling with this even more, is the chronically unemployed. That's our biggest challenge. And there are all kinds of models and lots of money being spent all over the country to try to fix that problem. And there's a lot of effort being exerted locally on that, but it's one of those that people that just traditionally haven't been employed and trying to get them back into the workforce is a huge challenge for us.
So since workforce is so important, I'll make 2 quick comments on it. First of all, we're having things happening right now as we speak that I haven't seen in workforce before, and I'll just name a couple of those things. Well, first let me give you an umbrella answer. Within these 17 counties, there are pockets of incredibly successful programs going on. What's happening though, those people are doing great work, but it's either in their city or their county, and there's not anybody there that their role is to go out and let's spread the word and share some best practices. We're going to have somebody start, we just kind of announced 2 weeks ago at our annual meeting, Joe Lazar, that many of you know from Meijer Construction, that on July 1st, even though he's working hard at it right now, matter of fact, talked to Lieutenant Governor today, he's going to be starting July 1st as kind of the quarterback, the connector of dots, the person within Northwest Ohio that everyone knows. If you want to know what's going on and you want some help, that's the guy to talk to. I truly believe that we have all the resources we need right now for workforce. It's just they're not connected. So all this stuff we've talked about today, we've all been doing it together for 20 years. So we want to take that collaboration, that work that's had success for economic development, translate that into the things that affect economic development. And the number one thing is workforce. So not only are we doing that to make sure we're connected, we also have 3 different groups, Toledo Regional Chamber, which is a huge one, as we speak right now doing work of what they're calling emerging pipelines. What are companies, and they're doing really more across the board, Ohio Manufacturers Association and Jobs Ohio, we're focused on manufacturing for Northwest Ohio. So there has been now multiple meetings with all company-driven to let's make sure we agree on our language of what a maintenance tech means. What are the top 3 things we all need as manufacturers? They've done that. They've also then brought in who are the service providers that are doing great work to provide those kind of skill sets. And now we're looking at ways for Jobs Ohio and others to put more resources into the things that are working and then make sure that everyone's aware of it. So things are happening right now in workforce. You can't go into a meeting and say the W word and the meeting gets taken over. So it's such an important thing, a lot more concentration by organizations like ours you're starting to see, because we don't have a choice anymore to say, well, that's not us, we don't do that. Because pretty soon when I throw you out those numbers, 4,500 jobs a year for 5 years, well, wait a minute, we're not bringing people in. I mean, how are you not just moving the chess pieces around? So we've really got to find some things that work, and there's good things going on, it's just bringing it all together. The last thing I'm going to say is this, Austin, Texas. Be all end all, Austin's great, right? That's a spot all the young people want to go, it's fantastic. My wife and I were there last summer on vacation, never been there, long weekend. Sunday, color, top of the fold paper, all these incredible tech companies are here in Austin, but we can't find the workforce. So it's not just us, it's everywhere in the country, including the places that evidently everybody wants to go. So it's a problem all around, but we're working on it pretty hard.
Hello. Ooh, this thing's hot. Toledo sits probably in the best geographic location in the United States. We have rail, water, sustainable airport, and at the crossroads of 2 of the busiest highways in America. But we can't seem to fill that Rossford corner with the type of distribution centers and what America's becoming. We don't shop in big boxes anymore. We shop over the internet. The Amazon deal was probably a pipe dream. But we could have made it outside of the fact we don't really have an entertainment center, which was big on their list and not necessarily the most important thing. Is it the workforce that's delaying our filling that entire segment of Northwest Ohio with endless warehouses and distribution centers and using the many resources that we really have here, possibly the best in the country?
Bob, what was your comment on Amazon? What did you say about that?
Say
Some of
again?
the corporate warehouse.
I just missed what you said about Amazon.
Amazon was a pipe dream. We weren't pretty enough for Amazon.
The headquarters, right.
Right,
Yeah,
we weren't
exactly.
pretty enough for Amazon,
So
but
to-
we had the
got
other
it.
criteria.
Exactly, got it. So to answer your question directly, no. Workforce is not the reason why. If you look at Northwest Ohio, and I know you're specifically talking about Rossford, but if you look within a 30-minute drive from that point, there's not a household name big box retailer that doesn't have their major distribution center within that space, not a one. And we've landed most of those in the last 7 years, I would say, 7 to 10, and probably half of them in the last 3 to 5. And that's not going to stop. And let's talk again next year, and there's going to be a different answer.
I think to answer your question specifically about the crossroads area is that it wasn't envisioned properly. That was the perfect location to assemble a large tract of land and do large-scale warehouse distribution, light manufacturing. That's not how it all unfolded. It unfolded with commercial real estate brokers going in there and deciding that it's going to be retail, and so we got a Bass Pro, and then everything was platted out and designed more towards that, when in reality, if what you really have to do is go up 20,000 feet, look down at Northwest Ohio. It is the absolute perfect location to have been master planned. It's got rail, it's got turnpike, it's got 75, to be a very large industrial park out there, but unfortunately was driven by, wasn't driven by a developer with a big vision. It was driven more or less by real estate speculators.
But again, that is changing. And even the way they're now looking at that property, the powers that be that get to make those decisions are looking at it exactly as Paul's suggesting. So again, Bob, I'd say let's have the same conversation at this meeting next year, and I think that you'll be surprised at how you won't be asking that question. So.
Let's see, I'm Bill Proby with Toledo Jet Center, and a little disappointed and surprised that when you said about the aerospace industry, that you kind of ignore that because the people to the south. You know, with the fantastic airport that we have out there, we have the Toledo Public Schools that have a A&P training to where when the kids come out of school, they have their A&P license. And to say that, you know, we really don't do anything with aerospace, I think you're missing a very, very big part of the community that is there for development. You know, aircraft maintenance, when I was going through, I graduated from Macomber from that program, and they kept saying that you know, you're going to have a pilot shortage, you're going to have a mechanic shortage when all the World War II people go away. Well, that really never happened. I'm the general manager out there right now, and I can tell you that getting A&P mechanics and pilots and stuff now is very, very tough. And so I think that's something that you guys really need to look at, and to be able to develop the airport maintenance facilities and stuff in this airport. You have people that are being trained, high school people that come out and are ready for the workforce.
Yeah, and I misspoke and shouldn't have said it that way. It was probably a bad example. Again, everything you said, we are well aware of. We work very closely with the port and Paul, and we know all that's going on there. We also know all the assets of the region besides what you talked about, because Jobs Ohio has an aerospace person who actually used to be our representative also for Northwest Ohio. So he is often looking for and building those assets just to make sure if an opportunity came, we would certainly be prepared for it. We are not proactively versus those other industries. We're not proactively, we are not, but our team members at Jobs Ohio, they go to the Paris Air Show every year and they know the assets we have. Everything you just mentioned, they know we have. So again, that was probably a bad way for me to say it with you sitting there, but we're certainly aware of that, and when those opportunities are there, we know who our partners are to go to make sure we're putting our best foot forward. But all absolutely great points.
And I'll just chime in and say that we are 100% focused on that is one of our biggest opportunities out there going forward. We've filled up every hangar we've got. We've got wonderful entrepreneurs like Toledo Jet Center that took a vision and turned it into reality. They've got 30 or 40 mechanics. Bill shared with me the last 4 that they hired were from the Toledo Public Schools aviation program. These kids come out with a high school degree, an A&P mechanics license, and 16 or 30 hours of college credit right through this TPS program. We just partnered with TPS and gave them the old flight safety facility that was vacant, sitting out there vacant, and they've now doubled down on that program, and these guys continue to hire those. So we think aviation maintenance is a huge opportunity for us going forward, and it's one of the 4 things on my list here of what we're focusing on over the next 18 months is trying to leverage the fact that there is one area in the community where we actually have a workforce coming out in a nice constant flow, so we're excited about that opportunity.
And I can verify the hangar comment, because one of the last couple times Paul and I met, he told me about that and how do we go about and talked about the financial reality of building a new hangar. So I think we're going to be having some conversations with new administration in Columbus and our Jobs Ohio friends to see how we might be able to get some assistance to make that happen. So.
Yep.
Okay, I think that is all that we have time for. We're getting close to the 7 o'clock hour. So maybe if we ask nicely, Paul and Dean will answer some questions following the event. Please.
Happy to.
I am Kirsten Leffler. I'm the Assistant Director at the University of Toledo Family Business Center. And on behalf of the center and the Alumni Association, we would like to extend a big thank you to both Paul and Dean for speaking with us tonight. So thank you very much. And we'd also like to thank all of you for coming out and spending your evening with us. We have a couple of events that both the center and the Alumni Association are putting on in the spring that we just wanted to run through briefly with you. Thursday, April 4th, the center, along with Huntington National Bank, will be hosting a luncheon on situational response for our members on how to prepare for an active shooter and other extreme situations. Saturday, May 11th, the University of Toledo Alumni Association will be having their annual meeting at the William and Carol Kester Pavilion beginning at 4 p.m. Monday, May 13th, the center, along with Hylant, will be hosting a lunch mini forum discussing the Hylant family story. Tuesday, May 21st, the center and Skylight Financial Group will be hosting a business value gap analysis workshop on campus. And then Sunday, July 28th, Art on the Mall will be taking place courtesy of the Alumni Association. So please come and join us at our events. And on that note, may you have a wonderful evening. They are opening up the grill for anybody who wants to watch the NCAA tournament with like-minded people. So that will be happening upstairs. And drive safely. Have a good evening.